Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and a very special welcome coming all the way from Malaysia today, Mr. Maxwell Nee. How are you, my friend?
Good. Thank you, Darren. Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you, mate. And we actually meant to do this on Monday, but one of us, who was not you, had some issues with the internet and some work being done by a friendly national broadband network people here in Australia. So I greatly appreciate you coming in on this Friday to wrap up the week. Although people listening to this, you're probably listening to this on a Monday or a Tuesday, or in fact, you might have been listening to this in 2025. But whenever you happen to be listening to this conversation, is going to be well worth the listen. So, Maxwell, you are well, amongst other things, the Chief Revenue Officer at an organization called ScoreApp, which I'd love to delve into. But we're going to talk all things sales, lead generation, entrepreneurship, and maybe even a little bit of escaping corporate. We don't know, because I don't know what questions I'm going to ask you. But
Yeah, great.
before we jump into the conversation, love for you to give the audience a little bit of background on the story that is Maxwell Nee and what has ultimately led you to doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. So I I'll start off right at the beginning, So I never used to like sales. I don't think anyone does. I don't think anyone comes out of the womb and feels confident with rejection. I think it's something you definitely have to learn. A bit like driving a car, right? Like you got to learn, we got to learn. And so I forced myself to get comfortable with sales and rejection and things like that. And that looked like I've done door-to-door
Hmm.
sales. I thought I'd jump straight into the hardest, sales. And then I've done call center. I've done working at Telstra, like
Hmm.
face to face in the store. And I can tell you that, when someone's internet's not working, you get to see the worst of people. So, you really learn how to speak to people in that role. And then I moved into financial products. So I worked in corporate banking for CBA for about 5 years, and then, sold credit cards, loans, business loans, loans to big corporates, foreign exchange,
Mm.
all ends of the spectrum. And then I totally burnt out in corporate, and then I just was really unhappy, so I just left and just winged it, and I ended up building with some business partners a online education business where we would sell like business coaching courses, and a
Okay.
big part of it was sales education, right? So we showing business coaches how to launch their first $5,000-$10,000 months
Hmm.
working for themselves. And that scaled really fast once we got the hang of it. We did about 2 million bucks in our first 2 years. And at the peak of it, we had 23 team members, 6 sales staff that I was managing, totally remote team. We'd never met each other. This was during COVID,
Yeah.
and we had an 81% profit margin.
Wow.
So mainly because I was working 18-hour days and doing a lot of the sales myself. So now I've moved more into I've exited that business. So now I'm more into investing.
Hmm.
So like I'll invest in a business. So I've actually invested in ScoreApp where I'm at right now, and then helping them to get to the next level, helping us all to get to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting, eclectic mix of background in terms of door-to-door sales, selling credit cards, home loans, right into the online business, running an online education program and business. So when you look back on that and you talk about you didn't want to necessarily get into sales, as you sit here today as the Chief Revenue Officer of ScoreApp, how do you approach sales? And when people talk about sales, how do you now think of selling?
Yeah, this is the ultimate question, right? And there's, the frame of how you look at this could either make you really happy or really unhappy doing
Mm.
sales. So the way I feel really happy about doing sales is that I see it as problem solving,
Hmm.
right? Because when you sell something, no one wants to be that person when you're forcing something down someone's throat, right? You want to, identify a problem that they have, and then, diagnose a bit like a doctor. I see
Mm,
myself as more like a doctor. I diagnose a problem that they have, and then I subscribe the prescription, which is either my product or another product that can
yeah.
help them, get better.
So when you say your product or another product, I want to delve into that because I also share, I guess, the same perspective on sales. So I was actually on a podcast this morning and the guy asked me that very same question. And I said, well, first of all, I think sales is the ultimate form of service, but in order to be of service, you need to be able to diagnose whether there's a problem that the service can actually solve. So when you think about selling, and you mentioned just before that whether it be my product or somebody else's product, how do you grapple with that? Particularly because there'll be people listening to this that have sales targets they need to close and they need to achieve, and they're under pressure to sell their widget, right? And if they don't sell their
Yeah.
widget, they've got their sales manager that's going to come down on top of them and say, why aren't you selling? What are you doing? What's your gap closure strategy? When you look at selling as problem solving, and we'll get into lead generation part of this as well, certainly, but how do you see recommending your own product versus the other product in terms of service and problem solving?
Yeah, good question. So there's almost like five corners to this question. It's a big question, right? When you really understand it. So, uh, where should I start? Look, so if we were to make it really simple, selling is, offering something to someone. And in many ways, I relate it to like dating. So when you're dating, if you come off as like needy, oh, I want to date you, like I'm gonna force, like I've just met you, but I'm ready to get married. Like it doesn't work, right? And maybe it works 1% of 1% of the time, but that's not a good percentage. So selling is the same. So whilst you see something, you identify a match, you think there's a good fit, it doesn't matter until that person sees the fit as well. So half
Mm,
of it is just education of, okay, look, I can solve ABC. It looks like you already have DEF. So maybe let's talk about what ABCDEF looks like altogether,
mm,
right? So it's a combination of leaving neediness at the door, bringing you know authenticity and genuine curiosity to the
mm,
table, right? Because you know everyone can feel when someone's being insincere, like, oh yeah, you really need this, when they don't, right? And that is what gives sales a bad name. It's where greed takes over the sincerity,
mm.
right? But if you can keep sincerity as at the top of the pyramid,
Yeah.
then I find that um, it's so refreshing. It's like a beautiful ice bath. Like it just feels, it'll wake you up, and it's like, wow, this person actually cares about me. I'm going to listen to them a little bit more,
Yeah.
with two ears, right? So that is the counterintuitive magic sauce, in my opinion.
And so when you think about that, because there'll be a lot of people that have had experiences with selling, and I always ask people the question, who loves to be sold to? And it's very rare that somebody puts their hand up and says, yeah, I love to be sold to. But most people like to do the buying or like to be in charge of their buying decisions, which is fine. When you talk about sincerity and keeping that top of the pyramid or top of mind, how do you demonstrate sincerity? Because if you talk about problem solving being the sales, the ultimate form of sales, how do you maintain a level of sincerity where the person you're selling to actually resonates with that to the point where they're almost compelled to want to lean forward and learn more?
Yeah, so it's so simple that it's sickening, right? And it's as simple as being it's as simple as, being willing to lose a sale, right? So for example, if you're selling um BMWs, and
Mm,
someone comes in and they say, I want this feature, that feature, and you find that your BMW doesn't match any of those, the really sincere salesperson will say, look, I think a I think a Mercedes is a better fit for what you're looking for.
Yep.
Um, like I would love to take your money. I would love to sell you a BMW. I think BMW is great, but everything that you've said, I think Mercedes is where you should, look at first.
Mm.
And not many salespeople are willing to do that, right? Because they're taught not to do that. They're taught to make the most of every opportunity. But in my mind, that is making the most of every opportunity because, whilst you might put your foot, um, in might have stubbed your foot, walking into that sale, that person's going to respect you more. That person's going to like you more. And also, the worst case is if you manage to talk them into something that they don't want, then they'll resent you after they buy it,
Yeah.
right? And then they're never coming back and they're going to tell six friends, right,
Yeah.
that they had a bad experience or
Yeah.
that, Darren was pushy, right?
Yeah.
So that is and there's a bit of trust, it's a bit of trust that if you do the right thing by people, that it all comes back around. So it's a bit,
Mm.
it's a little bit like spiritual that, but I think it's worth it, right? And in my experience, it is worth it. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're talking about this because I'm very much of the same view. In fact, I was doing a masterclass for a client of mine earlier this week, and I had a group of sales leaders, and we were talking about this very topic. And one of the guys actually shared with me that he'd been in this particular industry for over 30 years, and he'd been at a previous organization for about 20 of those years. And he said, I still get phone calls from ex-customers or customers from my ex-company who call me when they have a query about a certain product that only that company provides. And it could be like a part number or something like that. And I said, so John, how do you handle that? And he says, well, I give them the information because I'm there to serve them. And I said, what do you notice about that transaction? He said, well, I'm helping them, I'm serving them, but it also means that I'm building a further reputation that I'm the person who is the go-to individual, and I know that business is going to come my way because of that. So it
Yeah.
comes back to what you said before in terms of you're not necessarily just there to flog your own product. What you're there to do is provide a solution that hopefully is the best fit for that particular customer.
Yeah, 100%. And this might sound a little bit, woo woo, a little bit like doesn't make sense, right? But then if I remember my own experience, so I buy all my gym gear from Lululemon, right?
Mhm.
And they don't do it so much anymore, but almost 10 years ago now, if you had any problem with any of the gear because they were new in the region, they were new in Australia,
Yeah.
they were at the pinnacle of manufacturing. So a lot of their products weren't tested, right? So they were testing their products as they were selling it. So long story short is that if you had one fray, you could bring it back,
Mm.
get your money back. And most companies don't do that. If it was too long, they alter it for free, right? Even shirts,
Mm.
and they still do that. But and every other, fast fashion company would just say, hey, sorry, terms of buying from us is that, you just got to live with it,
Yeah.
right? But that came back around. And if you look at Lululemon's share price, even though they, threw that money out the door by just refunding or exchanging or whatever,
Mm.
they've grown at a 35% compounding rate for 15 years.
Amazing.
Right. So it really does pull you back in a good way.
And you think about that, and as you were talking, I'm just thinking about how the corporate industry has also changed over the last, say, 10, 15 years as well. And there's a lot of organizations now that are going to a no contract type of relationship. So
Mm.
cancel and user pays and as you go sort of model that it means that the organization has to continue to remain top of mind and provide service. Otherwise, they're going to lose contracts or lose customers. Versus back in the day, it was like, right, Maxwell, we're going to sign you up for a 2-year contract. Minimum spend is going to be this, and you have to adhere to that. Otherwise, there'll be penalties, right? And that
Yeah.
didn't create a huge amount of loyalty. Now that's changed, and organizations are looking for how do we provide differentiated value against our competitors. And part of it is giving it and making it easier for customers to make changes, to give discount or not to much refunds or whatever the case might be. Um, in your experience, and certainly the work that you're doing now, do you find that starts to increase loyalty so that when you look at it from a pure business perspective, you might think, well, this is a silly way to do it, but it actually starts to actually compound and provide benefit.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example, right? So right now, I'm Chief Revenue Officer of ScoreApp, which is a tool that ranges from 50 to $200 a month and helps you generate more leads in your business.
Hmm.
Um, you know, what a lot of people don't know is that before ScoreApp was created, the same team used to build scorecards for businesses for 20K. You know what I mean? So, but now we've systematized it so everyone can get it for $50 a month instead of 20K.
Yeah.
So, we've given away a lot of margin, but now we have 6,000 clients,
Mm.
right? That use it all at the same time. And I dare say, you know, at some point, lifetime value might be more than 20K, when you
Mm.
take into account costs and overhead and things like that. So,
Yeah.
um, it's a bit like why is Costco and Walmart still at the top of their game?
Yeah.
They haven't increased prices on many of their products. The Walmart or the Costco hot dog is still $1.50. It's been $1.50 for 40 years, right? So, like, how are they still, have top of the pyramid share prices? Because they found that right balance of adding value to the customer to the point where everyone loves them,
Yeah.
right? I'm not saying you got to discount to win, but like you got to innovate your business model, right? Like maybe your business model could attract more as a subscription, or
Mm.
maybe you share a bit of the risk, right?
Mm.
You don't whack your customers with 20K upfront. Like maybe you share a bit of that risk. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in the industry that and you mentioned you worked at Telstra for a while, and I've spent a bit of time at Telstra in the corporate space, and just thinking about some of the contracts we were doing, and it did have the big minimum spends and the big capital expenditure and things like that. But even as I was leaving, this is about 2015, they were starting to move away from that and go into more of a managed model, which was like a subscription fee. And
Mm.
even then, they were starting to change the way they do business. And it just makes sense. You probably have more access to a wider group of customers, but you then have to work on volume. And when you've got volume, you've got to provide high levels of service as well and make it easier for customers to do business. So the barrier to entry needs to be lower as well.
Yeah, and you know, maybe each salesperson then gets a bit less commission, but then the
Mm.
sales are easier.
Yeah.
So well, what businesses also need to find a balance between is often there's a business owner that owns a business and they're so good at selling it because they know it inside out. And then they try to replicate that to an outsourced person, and usually conversion rate drops by half.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, how do you find that balance that an everyday, not like a master Jedi, could walk in and win in that role so that the business can thrive?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I like the way you talk about the fact that you've got to continue to innovate your business model and to stay relevant. And from
Yeah.
your perspective, looking maybe, I don't know, 12 months down the track, 2 years down the track, or what's going to happen in 5 years' time, and sort of start to preempt, not so much that you get ahead of the marketplace, but you think about, well, how are businesses now procuring services? Is there a new wave of the way business is going to be done so it can be on the front edge of that innovation?
Yeah, I think that's a big one for any salesperson is that um, they need to see themselves as more than just a salesperson. They've got to see
Mm.
themselves as like a mini personal brand,
Mm.
right? Um, it doesn't matter what they're selling. At some point the buyer, no matter how big the company, the person that you speaking to has to like you enough as a
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
because you're a front-facing representation of your company. So, building up that, high integrity personal brand, no matter what you're doing, no matter how small in the company you might think you are, is really important.
Which comes back to what you said before in terms of the sincerity at the top of the pyramid, and you've also got to be consistent with that sincerity, and it has to be genuine. It can't be
Yeah,
fake because people's BS meters, particularly in Australia, as you well know, is pretty high.
yeah. Yeah, and there's a word for that, right? It's a nasty word. Like fake sincerity is very close to manipulation.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and that's yuck, very yuck, and people can feel that, and you might get away with it for a little bit, but then it all comes crashing down, right? So, you know, and look, what it comes down to, and this is why it's sickeningly simple, is treat people how you would want someone to treat your grandma,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't want anyone to, um, sell something your grandma doesn't need and put something on a credit card that's too heavy for her to spend, right? You'd want them to recommend something from the bottom of their heart,
Mm.
that is in her best interest.
Yeah.
So treat people how you would want your grandma to be treated is what I used to tell my sales team.
Love it. I love it. And it's a good way of actually recognizing the fact that it's not about you. It's about the other
Mm,
person. And by all means, you've got to believe in your product and you've got to believe there's value in what you're going to provide to the customer. But ultimately, you want the customer to be able to be in control of their buying decision, and you give them every opportunity to make the best decision for them, but not be in a case where you're almost got this commission breath that you're breathing all over them to try and force them into some form of decision that may not be the best thing for them.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And so from that, because I do want to talk about lead generation because there'll be a lot of people that are working in businesses and say, yeah, I get all that. I reckon I'm a really good salesperson. I reckon I'm there to solve problems. I reckon I'm there to serve my customers, but I simply don't get enough leads, Maxwell. My business and my marketing team are not giving me enough leads. I could be the best salesperson in the world, but we're not getting the leads coming in. So how how do we demonstrate, I guess, the sincerity in the marketplace that makes our organization attractive so that we can have those sincere conversations and be of service to the marketplace? Because I know one of the things you like talking about is making sure that lead generation is like your number one priority.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So look, let's define a lead first of all, right? A lead is someone who's identified to you that they're interested in what you have to offer, and they put their hand up saying, "Hey, I'd like to learn more."
Mm,
So in exchange for that information, you need to offer them something. No one gives that information out for free. You could try asking for it for free, but you only get so much, right? So in exchange for people's information, data, whatever else, you got to give something pretty high value.
mm,
What we use and what we've developed is scorecard marketing, where they fill out their information, then they get a personalized report based on where they are now, where they want to be, and how to measure themselves to get there.
mhm,
So that gives them a little quick win. They get to read a bit of insight saying, "Oh, okay, if I work with Darren on this, I'm a 3 right now. He could help me get to a 10 in 6 months, right? And then at a 10, my business and life would be amazing." So
yeah.
that's the core value proposition of a scorecard. Now, that's really valuable because it's automated, it's personalized for each and every person. No two people will get the same scorecard unless they fill in the same information. And then what it does for you, Darren, is that it'll help you to identify who's the red hot leads. Because the worst thing a salesperson could do is they come to work on a Monday, they're all fired up, they're pouring their heart and soul into contacting these leads. And, for some reason, they've contacted 15 cold ones in a row and they get hung up 15 times in a row. Right. That's the worst. But
Yeah.
if you could know who's really hot and ready, to contact them first, and then also know how to speak to what specific needs that they have, that information is really valuable. So that's what we want to empower salespeople, entrepreneurs, service providers, coach consultants to do.
Mm. And it's interesting when I was going through coaching accreditation many years ago, one of the mentors said you need to probably spend about 80% of your time on sales and marketing and about 20% of your time on delivery.
Yeah, it's horrible, right? So anything that could try to balance that out, right, and have you spend less time chasing people down, um, is a win. Is a huge
Mm.
win.
Yeah. But it has to be of value. So you mentioned before you've got to give something of value for in return for their information and so forth. So
Yeah.
um, and we'll talk about this, I guess, the Score app in terms of what you do. But from a general marketing point of view, a lot of people would know things about lead magnets and things like that. Um, if based on your experience, if you were thinking about some key things to think about in relation to an attraction strategy, because there's obviously that, as you mentioned before, there's the cold calling you can do, there's the outreach campaigns, emails, and all that sort of stuff. But what are some key things that you think about when it comes to putting something out there in the marketplace that hopefully will be a bit of a catalyst for people to want to put their hand up?
Yeah, so any lead magnet, right? So a typical lead magnet might be, put your email address in to receive a 10% off coupon or something like that. When you buy something online, you see that a lot. A typical lead magnet will convert at 10 to 15%.
Hmm.
From what we've seen with scorecards and ScoreApp, it's often between 20 to 40%
Okay.
because it's a very engaging type of lead magnet. And it doesn't matter which one you use, but you just want to use one that provides instant value. So then that person, they get a little win. And then if you give someone a little win immediately, your credibility goes up. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, Darren's really sharp. He's onto it. He knows my needs better than the last person I spoke to
Yeah.
because he was able to give me an instant win.
Hmm. Yeah. And so when you look at that in terms of, let's talk about the Score app itself. Is it a four-step playbook you talk about to generate better leads and better, what is it, bigger profits with quizzes, scorecards, and personalized reports?
Yeah, yeah,
Love
yeah.
it.
So basically someone fills out a quiz. They get a report, a personalized report. You get their data, and then that data helps to point you towards their pain points, right?
Okay.
So whether you're selling enterprise software, whether you're selling, houses or whatever, accounting, financial planning, it never hurts to know more about someone's specific pain points. Yeah.
And so with this, are we saying it's an app that's now customized? So irrespective of the industry, you can become a subscriber of this app and customize it to suit your own business and your own needs in terms of what the questions that you ask and things like that, or is it preloaded sort of quizzes and so forth that are more general?
It's totally customizable. So there's two
Okay.
options. You could choose to build your own and use AI to help you. AI will write 6 to 7 hours of copywriting and all that type of stuff based on a framework that you give it. Or you could just download one of the templates that we have on the website, copy and paste, and then, just polish it up with your own branding and everything else.
Hmm. Nice. And in terms of I guess the marketplaces that you're now working on, because you said there's 6,000 customers, are
Yeah,
there some examples in terms of the breadth of, I guess, businesses that are using this? And you mentioned before that some of the return rates are between 20 and 40% in terms of the,
version.
yeah, the conversion rates.
Yeah, so we have a very, very broad customer base. I wish we had a niche that I could give you, but it's very, very broad. Like on our website, you'll see like HubSpot Australia is an enterprise client, right? So we
Okay.
have quite a few enterprise clients, a lot of financial planners in the UK, enterprise clients plus personal clients, coaching, consulting, service providing, financial planning, accounting, engineering consulting, sales consulting, business coaching of all ranges, health, personal brand, trauma coaching, uh, um, any anyone that has a product that needs a lot of education. So it's any type
Mm.
of service provider, right? So
Yeah.
we help your clients to get educated on why they need to work with you.
Nice. And did I see that there's a person called Jay Shetty that's somewhere connected with all of this?
Yeah, so there's a few big influencers, like Jay Shetty's got 10 million followers or something like that. So he uses ScoreApp. He's on our website. There's a guy called Chris Do who's got, his followers are in the millions as well. He's a business coach for graphic designers. And
Hmm.
then Ali Abdal, who's also got a couple million followers. Yeah,
Nice. And so with this, because I want to talk about, I guess, the lead generation and getting more leads into the business, whether you're a corporate, a small enterprise entrepreneur, how do we use this to best effect? Obviously, customizing the questions and so forth. But if somebody was thinking and listening to this for the first time and thinking, you know what, I've got a real challenge with lead generation. We've got our marketing group or I've been picking up the yellow pages or the white pages and just dial, dial, dial.
Mhm.
How do we need to have like a list to begin with, or is this something that we can pick up from scratch and start to create a list from nothing?
You can definitely use this to create a list from nothing. So you can use this um, plus just literally post it on LinkedIn, post it on Facebook, and that'll generate some interest. Obviously, if you have your own mailing list or your own email list or even a list that you might acquire for your business development team, that is a good starting point as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice. And one of the reasons I'd love to hear you, what were one of the reasons why you jumped into this? Obviously, you saw something, you saw a future. Was
Mhm.
there a specific catalyst that, having sold out of the business online education, the business coaching online
Yeah.
education process, was there something that you saw in this as a way of, like a new way of marketing or better penetration? What was it that sort of really attracted you to this?
Yeah, so when we had that business that did, 2 million bucks a year in its first 2 years, we a lot of people ask me, how'd you do that? And it's really simple with a lot of leads and a lot of sales. So one of our lead generation tools was our own scorecard. So
Mm,
I was, one of the first, I don't know, 20 clients that used it in a really big way. So I've seen it work. I believe in it because it worked for us and generated a whole bunch of leads, revenue, sales, and impact. And then I thought, okay, well, you know, um, I couldn't speak more authentically about how it could work, right? Because I've actually used it in my own business.
mm. So hence you, it's like what was that ad years ago? The guy that was Remington, he liked the company so much that he bought it.
Yeah, like I'm a bit like that, like I like things a lot, and then like to go all in on them.
And so when you think about that, because I know that one of the things you really passionate about is creating a personalized client experience. When you put yourself into I guess the client's shoes, and you mentioned before that you were doing a lot of the scorecarding yourself.
Mhm.
Um, what are some things that you were thinking about in relation to the client experience that helped you personalize this? Because I'm thinking people will be listening to this and thinking, okay, this sounds fantastic. I can actually come up with some questions and so forth, but they may not know where to start because most of them are probably going to come from the perspective of their own product or their own service and try to retrofit that. How did you guys start around that? Was it something coming directly from the customer experience of what the problems were, or did you think, okay, we have a service we want to sell, let's try to retrofit, but then do a reverse engineering exercise?
Yeah, good question. So I think it comes back to the first thing that we said, right? So, no one is going to use your scorecard unless it solves a problem for them. So it's like, how can you position it so that it solves a problem for the user?
Mm,
That's that's the reason why it exists. That's the reason why you exist, why I exist. It's to solve problem. So, um, everyone's got a great product, but if it's not solving problems for people, it's a melon.
mm.
It just sits does nothing, right? Yeah.
And so when you look at that and think, let's just take because you mentioned before you've got lots of different organizations across a multitude of different industries. Let's
Mhm.
just take, I don't know, SaaS, software as a service,
Yeah.
as an example. If I was a SaaS provider and I was looking at increasing the market penetration in Australia, what are some things that would be thinking about putting in there in relation to a scorecard or some sort of quiz that may actually provide some value that enables me to get some information out of potential customers? Just is there a practical kind of example that we can use?
Ask me that question again. I didn't quite catch it. What you're looking for?
That's because I ask really long, elongated questions, mate. That's what it is. So if I'm
And,
at,
and
if
and
I'm
it's Friday.
and it's Friday, absolutely. It's so if I'm looking to use the Score app, right, and it's a
Mm,
customized thing, I'm
mhm,
looking to increase the number of leads that are coming into my SaaS company, right?
mhm.
What are some things that I should be putting or thinking about putting into a quiz in order to build some awareness in the marketplace, but more
Yeah, like
importantly, get
how
them to
to
put their
use it,
hand up. Yeah.
right? How to use it. Yeah, yeah. So good question. Um, the magical thing about scoring, score app, scorecard is that we want to help people score themselves, which means you want to help someone measure where they are now. The
Mm.
vast majority of salespeople, sales experiences, things talk about things in words, but no like numbers, right? But if
Yeah.
you could show someone, hey, look, um, I could see that you want to get to a 10 out of 10 of profitability, 10 out of 10 of scale, 10 out of 10 of regional dominance, 10 out of 10 of market share. Based on everything you've said, you're a three.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how to cover from 3 to 10,
Yeah.
right? 7 steps. So that is the magic. If you could put a measuring stick in front of someone based on where they are now and their goals, that's what brings the awareness, in a real tangible way. A really simple example is, I used to do a bit of marketing in my previous life for a gym.
Hmm.
And this gym is in the center of Brisbane and it just kills it. Like it's in the millions and millions of dollars and everyone pays a premium price, like triple what they would pay at any other gym. And they get a better service, but triple to lift some weights is a
Yeah.
lot of money. And the first thing that they basically did a scorecard. The first thing they did for every new client, every potential client, even if you're 1% interested, is they give you a free body fat scan,
Okay.
right? So give you a free body fat scan, which typically costs $30 at every other gym because it's a licensed machine. But their theory is that if we spend $30 to generate a lead, that's a pretty cheap lead. And they're in the
Mm.
store right now, so we've got them. They can't hang up on us, right? So they come in, they give away $30 to get someone to measure themselves. And all of a sudden, everyone's results is much worse than what they thought. Hey, look, you're at 22% body fat, and healthy is between 14 to 16. So when you see that in front of yourself, and you look at the mirror, and you've got a very caring personal trainer in front of you that cares about helping you get to a healthy state, it's very compelling. It's
Mm.
very compelling to want to do something about it. So it's like putting that gap, showing people a gap of where they are, and how you can help them cover it.
But a lot of it is, I mean, that's a good example that you're in a gym and you get the machine to actually show it to you.
Yeah, yeah. So you
But
can't
on the
escape
app
it.
itself, it's going to be a lot of self-assessment though, isn't it? Because here's the question I've got
Yeah.
is how many potential customers, I guess, embellish the truth and actually give a better version of where they actually are.
Yeah, and I'm sure, we've all done that, consciously, unconsciously. But I think that even seeing
Mm.
some number that isn't 100%, right? And who's 100%
Yeah.
type of thing. And working that into the questionnaire, into the scorecard is enough to, build a lot of awareness that they could be ready to buy something.
Because it always comes down to, uh, well, most people, most businesses are always in not so much maintenance mode, but they're always looking to improve, get better, increase customers, increase profitability, revenue, and so forth. So they're always looking at moving forward.
Mhm.
Whether they end up investing and doing the things required to move forward is another thing entirely. But they should be pretty good at identifying where they're at right now and thinking about where the potential gaps are that they can potentially close. But what we're saying is that is an app like this, a scorecard, enables us to do a bit of a self-assessment to say, okay, where's reality right now? Where do I want to be? But it also
Yeah.
gives me something tangible that I can work on in order to make that at least progress. I may not necessarily get to the end state, but I can at least see what the roadmap's going to look like.
Yeah. Super tangible.
Yeah. And so with this, because you mentioned before, it goes across multiple different industries. Is how easy is it for people to get access to it, and where can people check it out?
Yeah. So on our website, you could start with the free version if you want
Hmm.
to cut your teeth. So that's ScoreApp, ScoreApp.com. If you'd like a free copy of this book, I can get one of these out to you if we can ship it to you, depending on where you live. If not, you get a PDF, and that's
Hmm.
scoreapp.com/book. So happy to get those out to everyone listening. And start with the free version. All right, start with the free version and let us help you to get it working so that, you want to upgrade to the paid version. And then we go from there.
Which is literally using the methodology that you talk about in the Score app itself, using it to generate awareness, education, and hopefully useful information and want to take the next step. So you're
Yeah.
eating with respectfully, you're eating your own dog food.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Eating our dog food.
Sensational. So if there was a couple of things to leave the audience with, Maxwell, in terms of um, leading into the back end of 2024 and looking at 2025 in terms of developing market awareness, increasing I guess, the penetration of the marketplace.
Mhm.
Coming back to what you said earlier about being the problem solver and being sincere, what are some key things that might be top of mind for you based on what you're seeing in the marketplace to help us increase our capabilities?
Well, the first thing I'd say is, there's not many authentic, sincere sales business coaches like yourself, Darren. So if anyone's listening and they want to engage with one, then they should definitely talk to you. And also, you know, in anything that I've ever tried to do, I've always tried to look for an advantage, right? An advantage to do it, because otherwise, if you don't have an advantage, you're going to fall into the sea of everyone else and be a commodity, right? You
Mm,
want to be premium rather than a commodity. So,
yeah.
everyone that uses ScoreApp or some type of tool to give them an edge to help them penetrate their market a little bit better, you want to be looking for advantages like this, other advantages out there, and just action them,
Mm,
right? And then if you could test it for free, like what do you have to lose?
mm,
So, look for an advantage in your market, go for it. That could be working with you, that could be using scorecard, that could be working with another thing you've identified. If you can test an advantage for free, it doesn't really get much better than that, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's also, and as we've talked about, the free stuff needs to be really valuable as well. And certainly from
Yeah.
what I've seen of ScoreApp, it's highly valuable. So if people are getting something for free, they'll think, oh, this is a free thing. But then how do we allocate a value to that? So if the value is really high and that's for free, then any paid service or any paid thing in the back end, just imagine how good it's going to be. That's how you want your customers to be thinking, that if I get some value from you and it's free, I didn't have to pay for it, but it was extremely valuable and it's awesome, then just imagine what sort of value I'm going to get when, when we do pay for stuff. That's how you want people to be thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And you can always afford to give away things for free.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not so another way to look at it is if you were to go out there and try to network with a new client every day and try to build that connection with them, you probably have to buy them a coffee, right?
Mm.
So, the coffee plus the time to go speak to them, that's 90 minutes
Yeah.
plus coffee, petrol, and everything else.
Yeah.
When you could almost reach that same level of connection with an app,
Yeah.
Score app. That's how you get leverage and scale, and that's how you come out with an advantage.
Yeah. And in 2024 and beyond, who's got time to spend 90 minutes going to a coffee?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? So we can move so much faster now, right? And scale and, transcend regions and time zones. So you got to be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, mate. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I know you've got something on the hour to get to. For people wanting to know more about you, you've given us I guess, the information around ScoreApp and the book. If they want to connect with you directly, where's the best place for them to do so?
Yeah, so I'm addicted to LinkedIn. So yeah, so if you want to reach me, that's where you can reach me. I'm more, even if you knew where I lived, you'd find me on LinkedIn more than where I live. So Maxwell Nee, I'm the only one on there with that name on LinkedIn. And any ideas, anything you want to chat about, or you just want to connect to stay in touch, please do.
Awesome. And I will say you've only got a lazy 22,000 followers, mate. So what's going on?
Yeah, it's a combination of a whole bunch of different businesses and a whole bunch of podcasts and things like that. So yeah.
Sensational. Mate, this has been a terrific conversation. I greatly appreciate you coming on to the podcast, and may you enjoy a very, very successful entrepreneurial journey with ScoreApp. So I know it's going to be really successful. So keep up the great work, and thanks for being a guest.
Perfect. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Good on you, mate. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.